Oh, this is intimidating. A little red dot. You're in the middle of a red dot. So I'm Alejandro Baez. I chose to do this in English because I'm going to be talking about a topic that's deeply personal, and I think it's easier for me to say it in English than say it in my native language, so I hope you don't mind. So who am I? I'm an emergency medicine and trauma critical care doc. I'm born and raised Dominican. Some people say that I'm an academic mutt. I'm born and raised Dominican. At age 24, I was the national chief of disaster operations for the Red Cross here in the Dominican Republic, addressing the aftermath of Hurricane Georges. In 1999, I went to the US and I was blessed with a lot of great opportunities. In 2005, I became the first international doctor to graduate from emergency medicine at the Mayo Clinic. For those that are not medical, Mayo Clinic is the #1 hospital in the US. After Mayo Clinic, I went on to complete a trauma critical care fellowship with the Harvard system. And then I stayed at the Harvard system as faculty of the Harvard Medical School and associate director of emergency medical services at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Go Red Sox. By the way, at the expense of saying go Red Sox, because I now work in New York. So I hope this gets a little edited before I lose my job. So why am I here? I'm an academic doc. I've published 3 books. I have completed and published about 100 different studies, none of which relate to the topic I'm going to be covering today. So you can see that this is clearly intimidating for me and deeply personal. They say that when you're in a position like this, you have to imagine everyone being naked. I'm afraid I'm not going to do that because some of you guys, I really don't want to see you naked. So here's the thing. Jose Ginebra told me, Alejandro, you need to connect. People need to know why talking about resilience is important to you. People need to know that you do emergency medicine, you do trauma critical care, you've worked in disasters. And then he said this a couple of hours ago. He said, Alejandro, you absorb pain. And I never heard that before. But that's kind of what we do, right? And for the most part, you create a barrier. You want to be empathetic, but you want to be objective. You want to be able to be a good doctor, but you also want to be able to connect, but not too much, right? Because every day we see a lot of bad shit. Every day. And that stuff gets to you. So let me fast forward. After the Harvard system, I got a job here in the Dominican Republic, romanticizing about coming back home. In 2009, I came back. August of 2009, I came back. And I was the chair of emergency medicine critical care at a major hospital here in Santo Domingo. In January of 2010, and seriously, I'm not making this up, I was in Miami doing a disaster management instructor course. January 12th of 2010. I had finished the course and I was on a plane at the Miami International Airport tarmac when my BlackBerry, BlackBerries were in back then, started going crazy over an earthquake. Not knowing if the earthquake was in Santo Domingo or if it was in Haiti, we took flight, and I can attest that this was the longest 1 hour and 40 minutes of my life. We landed, we took care of business, treated a lot of medevacs, and then at the request of the Dominican government, I deployed to Jimani on the Dominican-Haiti border. And I'll be honest, I wanted to go back home. It was either that or curling into a corner, sucking my thumb and asking for my mommy. And then one of my mentors, and imagine, I'm a 250-pound guy. It was not going to be nice, me asking for mommy while sucking my thumb. So in the framework of all of this, one thought stuck. And it was a concept that my mentor Dr. Chopra, Sanjeev Chopra, told me, I said, Alejandro, the softest pillow is a clear conscience. So by seeing all the stuff that we saw and all the damage and all the suffering, how could I go back? So I put together my team, 5 of my teammates and colleagues from Boston. We operated a unit, an institute called the Operational Medicine Institute. We gathered a couple of colleagues from the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, and we did a lot of good. We opened a field hospital in Jimani, called it Buen Samaritano. We opened a field hospital on Font Parisien on the Haiti side, at the Love a Child compound. We saw 5,000 Haitians in 3 months. And I didn't think about it. You know, there's some pictures of this, and at one point I invited Mike Van Rooyen, the director of the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. He took a tour, brought his own photographer from Harvard, took a bunch of pictures. And a lot of people celebrated the stuff that we did. One of the things that happened was a lot of people took notice of the stuff that we did in Haiti. I even made it to the Harvard School of Public Health catalog. I was a cover model for the Harvard School of Public Health catalog, pro bono. And the best thing about that is that when my cousin Clark, who I had not connected with in a couple decades maybe, he saw this, he said, look at my cousin coming out of that helo like a rapper, like a badass rapper. So that was really cool and all. But this is what happened. While organizations and governments and NGOs were celebrating and rewarding, awarding us with recognition for the work that we did, something happened. A question popped in my head. And like DiCaprio, right, in Inception, let me go back. Let's see if we can go back. Can we go back to the other? Like DiCaprio and Inception, a thought is like a virus, resilient and contagious. And that thought, if God is all-powerful, then is he, or she, for the feminists, truly all-loving? How could Haiti happen if God is all-powerful and truly all-loving? So the thought kept perseverating, kept going on in my head, and then all turned black. But trust me, this wasn't off and on switch, this was over time. So in a case of what I call bitter irony, while we were being celebrated for the great work that we did in Haiti, I had a deep existential crisis. Bear in mind, here's a little something that people don't know about me. I grew up as a little preacher boy. I went 13 years to a Catholic school, but I was evangelical. That was my big secret. Bible in hand, under the arm. My mission was to convert those Catholics into evangelicals. And I succeeded. I converted my 5th grade teacher, and they took her out of teaching. so she became administrative. So apparently it worked. But keep in mind, how can I have that crisis, right? How can I ask, is God all-powerful and all-loving at the same time, with all my convictions that I had deeply rooted in decades? So needless to say, it was difficult, slow and painful. It took 3 years of my life. So I looked at that picture. Let's see if we can go back, because I don't seem to be controlling this thing. So I looked at that picture, and it was random. I was browsing the web, and that's the photographer that we took from the Harvard system. And I remember that guy. He lived in our camp in Font Parisien, Haiti. And I saw that picture, and I thought to myself, look at this guy. No clothes, no home, no family. no fucking leg. And there he is waking up every day with hope. So immediately what happened to me is that concept, that picture that I saw online, and pardon me if I curse, the research says that those of us that curse, we are more transparent and honest. So that's the justification for the censorship there. So that one concept of, that one thought, resilience, viral, perseverating, shifted into this one. There is a God. The universe is his body. And God is in all of us. So by grabbing my roots and turning one concept, one thought into another one, I was able to move forward, push forward. Today, I'm the chief of emergency medicine at one of the busiest trauma centers and emergency departments in New York City. Today, I can stand here and talk about deeply personal, in English, deeply personal, but not in my native tongue issues, right? So that concept was almost like a scene from The Godfather. How many of you guys like the Godfather movies? So Godfather 3 wasn't really Mario Puzo, right? But I still like Godfather 3. That scene where the cardinal, who was later to become the Pope, who was later to be assassinated, is at the Vatican with Michael Corleone. And he looks at this fountain and says, Michael, this fountain is Rome. The water is Christ. This rock is you, or the people of Rome. Pulls out the rock, breaks it in half, and says, look at it. It's dry inside. So that was for me. That worked for me. I'm not going to talk about religion, though, so I'm going to talk about a few other things. So here's the thing. Disconnect or be disconnected. Freddy Ginebra, when we were running some ideas in terms of what to do here, he said, Alejandro, this is a great topic, but you need to put a little bit of science and data. So this is my effort to put a little bit of science and data. By the way, did I say I'm a geek? I'm a geek. I am an absolute geek. So this is my attempt at science. Resilience, plasticity, stoicism, grit. These are all concepts that I think are somewhat related, right? They talk about resilience, they talk about strength, they talk about emotional strength. So let's go to the neuro basis of this. So these are brain scans. These are PET scans of the brain, functional scans. Recent studies show that in post-traumatic stress, your brain changes. It doesn't change just functionally. It changes structurally. You actually have different anatomical areas of the brain compared to normal brains. You have the basal ganglia that looks different. You have receptors for neurotransmitters, specifically mGlu-R5, which are receptors that work with a neurotransmitter called glutamine. You have more of those. Interestingly, glutamine, and specifically the mGlu-R5 receptors, are associated with, guess what? PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and learning. Are you guys connecting some of these thoughts? A thought, being viral, being resilient, obsessively perseverated in a brain. There's actually physiological data that explains why. So here's the thing, neuroplasticity. What is neuroplasticity? It's the ability of the brain to actually adapt and change functionally and even structurally. And one of the things that we know about neuroplasticity is that learning and repetitive learning creates that. So my thought is this: if bad shit changes your brain, right? Then the question is, does good shit also change your brain? Right? Makes sense. Repetition, perseverating thoughts. Is this the anti-OCD? Is this like a good kind of OCD? And guess what? Some really smart docs at the University of Michigan looked at this. They looked at PTSD vets and their brains. And they started doing mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, very fancy term. Meditation, praying, same thing. Thinking, learning. And they found that being mindful, meditating, actually changes your brain functionally, with data, with pictures, like this one. There's actually a lot of research that says that not only changes the way you process thoughts, but it also changes the way your brain looks. Gray matter, white matter. So it does work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a concept that I call resilience collecting. By the way, to Don Freddy Ginebra, I got this concept out of something that he told me a few years ago. He told me, I collect friends. And I thought to myself, with friends you collect stories and thoughts and you learn from each other. So the question is, can we be better? Can we get stronger by sharing stories of resilience and learning how people dealt with during difficult times? So this is, by the way, I got to apologize to all my research mentors. This is the saddest attempt at doing research. So I thought, Freddy wanted data, so I'm like, I'm going to get this great data. I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'm going to ask people whether external life events affect them. I'm going to ask people whether they actually use external life events inside to actually be better or get stronger. And ultimately, the geek in me went a little Westworld and asked the question, have certain life events make you question the nature of your reality? And what I got is this. I put a poll, 3 questions on Facebook. About 5 people answered out of thousands. I put it on Twitter. I said, well, Facebook is open, right? So if you answer, people are going to know what you answered. So I'm going to put it on Twitter. 6 people answered 1 question, 8, and then 12 another. So my conclusion out of that is people really don't want to talk about this. People prefer to talk about corruption and crime and adultery and sex and whatnot, but they don't want to talk about mental health. So that kind of created an issue, right? If talking and learning and listening and pausing and disconnecting is what you need to understand and get better, then how come people are not talking about this? How come people don't want to talk about this? So one of the things that I do, I'm the national chair in the U.S. of what we call tactical and police medicine. So I chair a committee that gathers docs that work with security agencies, police departments, and every year something I do is that I get a doctor that was exposed, experienced, and worked at a major tragic event. I get them to show up at our meeting and share some thoughts. So a lot of people talk about resilience in cases, and this is Ross Berkeley, SWAT physician for Las Vegas. He responded to the Vegas murders. The thing that stuck the most with Ross is that he said, Alejandro, I was awake for 36 hours. And the following day, I had to work as if nothing had happened because life had to go back to life as usual. So a few things that I highlight. He describes as being part of an unfortunate growing fraternity of mass shooting, the Mass Shooting Club. He talks about things that he did was talk, learn to listen, connecting. And he said that the more he talked, the more he listened, the better he got. My friend Ali Raja and I worked together. We actually shared an office when I was in Boston. Great guy. He had to respond to the Boston Marathon bombing. Not only that, he was at the Brigham and Women's Hospital when Dr. Davidson, a cardiovascular surgeon, got shot and killed by the son of a patient. So I asked Ali the same question. How did you keep moving forward? He says, well, at the time, it's all about running scenarios in your head, preparing for the worst. So in a way, this is like mental simulation, right? This is like simulating if something happens, you go, run it through your brain, and then you come up with the answers as to what you would do. And he also talked about talking and listening and said that worked. The other person that I talked to was Jeff Metzger from Dallas Police. He's the medical director for Dallas Police. And he said the same. He said initially I was a little maybe resistant to talking. Certainly didn't talk to my family. Family wouldn't understand. But he talked to colleagues and police officers, and talking helped him. Listening helped him. Understanding what others were feeling helped him. So this is a concept that a really, really smart friend of mine came up with when I was presenting this concept. Basically, the notion of, is this herd immunity? By the way, I have two political statements to use, and I failed to do that on the original one. Haiti and the Dominican. The Dominican Republic was the first country in after the Haiti earthquake, and 2017 we're still there. 2017 we're still there, so be fair. Herd immunity, this is my anti-vaxxers statement. Cut the bullshit, people are dying. But let's not talk about vaccination and talk about emotional immunity. Herd immunity says that the more people get vaccinated, the better they do, even the ones that don't get vaccinated because you're not transmitting disease. So the concept here is by sharing stories, by resilience collecting, do we all get better? Do we all get stronger? By listening, by disconnecting. In a world that's not thinking fast and thinking slow, but actually thinking ultra fast, we need to do this. I love that guy. So I wish I had time to tell my Obama story, but we are the change that we seek. Change is inside all of us. So this is a little something I wish it would look better. It just came to me that I was preparing this talk using TED Talks. So I was preparing to do a TED Talk using TED Talks and learning what other people were doing and learning about resilience in other folks and other brains and other places. And it came to me that it's almost like an Escher painting. We're learning to be stronger by listening to others, and we're sharing that knowledge. It's almost like the hand painting the hand or the hand fixing the hand. So this is my conclusion. You have to take a pause. You have to disconnect. Life is full of bitter trials, and I believe they are purposefully and perhaps intelligently designed to make you stronger. But you need to take a pause. You need to listen. You need to learn from what other people have experienced so you can be stronger and you can be better. So thank you very much. I'm already over time, but thank you so much.